I never thought fixing a broken shoe would change my life, but that night in the rain, everything started to shift in a way I couldn't stop thinking about. My name is Ethan Cross, and I fix things for a living at Sterling Tech Corporation. That's what I've always done. If something breaks, I make it work again. Lights, doors, systems, anything. It's simple. Broken problem, clear solution. That's how I like it. That Wednesday night, it was almost 11 o'clock when I finally finished fixing the air system on the 5th floor. I had been working on it for hours. My shirt was stuck to my back with sweat, and my hands were covered in grease. The whole building was quiet, empty. Everyone had gone home long ago. It was just me and the night security guard somewhere downstairs. All I wanted was to get out of there, go home, take a shower, and sleep. I grabbed my toolbox and walked toward the exit. The hallway lights buzzed softly, and my footsteps echoed against the floor. When I pushed open the glass doors, the rain hit me hard. It came down like a wall, cold and heavy. Within seconds, my jacket was soaked. I ran toward my truck, trying to avoid the biggest puddles, but it didn't matter. I was already drenched. That's when I saw her. Victoria Sterling. She was standing in the middle of the parking lot, completely still, like she didn't even notice the rain. Water poured down over her expensive dress, her hair sticking to her face. She held one shoe in her hand, and the other one was still on her foot, but the heel looked broken. I froze for a second. I had worked at Sterling Tech for 3 years, and I had only seen her a few times. She was always surrounded by people in suits, always moving fast, always serious. She had this presence that made everyone stand straighter when she walked by. Honestly, she scared me a little, but right then, she didn't look like the CEO of a big company. She just looked stuck. I hesitated. I wasn't sure if I should say anything. She was way above my level. What was I supposed to do, walk up and start talking to her? But I couldn't just leave her there. So I changed direction and ran toward her. She didn't notice me until I was close. Then she turned quickly, surprised. Her eyes met mine, and for a second she looked almost defensive, like she didn't expect anyone to come up to her. "Miss Sterling," I called out over the sound of the rain. "Are you okay?" She looked at me, confused. "Do I know you?" "Ethan Cross," I said. "Maintenance. I fix things around here." Her eyes dropped to the shoe in her hand. "My heel broke. My car won't start. My phone is dead." She paused for a second. "But I'm fine." She didn't sound fine. "You're standing in the rain," I said. "I'm aware of that," she replied quickly, a little sharp. Then her expression softened. "Sorry, it's been a long night." "I get it," I said. Then I pointed at the shoe. "Can I see the heel?" She blinked at me. "What?" "The broken heel. I can probably fix it." She stared at me like I had just said something completely ridiculous. "You fix shoes too?" Quote. "I fix everything," I said. "That's kind of my job." There was a short pause. Then she slowly handed me the shoe. It was expensive. I could tell right away. The heel had snapped clean off where it connected to the base. I knelt down right there in the rain and opened my toolbox. I always kept it with me. At Sterling Tech, something was always breaking. You learned to be ready. I pulled out some quick glue and a small clamp. The rain made it harder, but I worked carefully, holding the pieces steady, making sure everything lined up. A few minutes later, I stood up and handed the shoe back to her. "It won't last forever," I said, "but it should get you home." She took it slowly, turning it over in her hands like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "You just fixed it in the rain in 5 minutes." "I told you," I said. "I fix things." She looked at me differently then, not like I was invisible. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Really?" "You're welcome," I replied. I glanced toward the empty parking lot. "What about your car?" "I'll call someone tomorrow." "How are you getting home tonight?" "I'll figure something out," she said, but there was no confidence in her voice. "I'll drive you." Quote. She shook her head slightly. "You don't have to do that." "It's late. It's raining. You're stuck out here," I said. "I'm giving you a ride." "Just say yes." She hesitated for a second, then nodded. We ran across the lot together, both of us getting even more soaked. When we reached my truck, I opened her door first. She climbed in and looked around. My truck wasn't impressive. It was 10 years old, with scratches on the dashboard and a coffee stain on the seat. There were tools in the back, a gym bag on the floor. "Sorry about the mess," I said as I got in. "It's fine," she said. "Better than the rain." I started the engine, and the heater kicked in, blowing warm air into the cab. She gave me her address downtown, and I pulled out of the lot. For a few minutes, we didn't talk. The windshield wipers moved back and forth, fighting against the heavy rain. She stared out the window, quiet. "So," she said after a while, "you've worked at Sterling Tech for a while?" 3 years, I said. "Started right after school." "Why maintenance?" Quote. I shrugged. "I like fixing things. When something's broken, there's a clear problem, and there's a clear way to fix it. It feels good." She nodded slowly. "I understand that. In my job, nothing is that simple." I glanced at her. "What's it like being CEO?" She was quiet for a moment. "Lonely," she said. The word hung in the air. Then she seemed surprised she said it out loud. "I mean, it's good, challenging, but also lonely." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just focused on the road. We reached her building about 20 minutes later. It was a tall glass tower with a doorman standing outside under a covered entrance. Her world, not mine. She reached for the door, then paused. "Ethan," she said, turning slightly toward me. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why did you help me tonight?" "You could have just walked past me." I thought about it for a second, then answered honestly. "Because you needed help." She looked at me like that answer didn't make sense. "That's what people do," I added. "Not in my experience," she said quietly. There was something real in her voice, something heavy. "Then you've been around the wrong people," I said. She held my gaze for a moment. Then she smiled. It was small, but it was real. "Maybe I have," she said. She stepped out of the truck and walked toward the building. The doorman opened the door for her, and she disappeared inside. I sat there for a few seconds, watching the glass doors close behind her. Then I drove home through the rain, thinking about what she said, about how someone like her could feel that alone. The next morning, I got to work early like always. The building was quiet, just security and the cleaning crew finishing up. I went down to my workshop in the basement. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Tools everywhere, shelves full of supplies, the smell of oil and metal in the air. I made a cup of terrible coffee and got to work. Around 7:15, I went upstairs to check the air system I fixed the night before. Everything was running perfectly. I was writing down notes when someone knocked on the door. I turned around. Victoria's assistant stood there, holding a coffee cup and an envelope. "Miss Sterling asked me to bring you this," he said. I took both. The coffee was from that expensive place near the office. The envelope had my name on it. After he left, I opened it. The note inside was simple. "Thank you for last night. The heel is still working." I smiled without even realizing it. The rest of the morning went by like any other. Small repairs, quick fixes, normal work. But around noon, I heard footsteps coming down the stairs to my workshop. I looked up, and there she was again, Victoria Sterling. This time, she wasn't standing in the rain, but something about her presence still made everything feel different. She held the shoe in her hand, and she was smiling. She stepped fully into my workshop, still holding the shoe, and for a second I forgot how to breathe. "The heel broke again," she said, almost apologetic, like it was her fault. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked over. "Let me see." She handed it to me. The repair from the parking lot had held better than I expected, but the weak spot finally gave in. I turned the shoe over slowly, checking the brake. "It actually did pretty well," I said, "but that area was already weak. It needed more than glue." She watched me closely. "Can you fix it permanently?" "Yeah," I said, "but it'll take time and better materials." "I'll pay you," she said quickly. I looked up at her. "You don't have to." "These shoes cost over $1,000, she said firmly. "You are not fixing them for free." "Victoria," I said carefully, testing her name for the first time like she asked, "I'm not taking your money." She studied my face. "Why not?" "Because you don't owe me anything. You needed help. I helped. That's it." Her expression changed. It wasn't sharp or guarded anymore. It was confused, like she didn't understand how that could be true. "Most people want something from me," she said quietly. Always. I'm not most people. She held my gaze for a few seconds, like she was trying to figure out if I was lying. No, she said softly. You're not. She left the shoes with me and went back upstairs. That night, after everyone else left, I stayed in my workshop. I took the heel apart completely, cleaned it carefully. I added a thin metal support inside where it couldn't be seen. I used stronger adhesive and clamped it tight. It took me almost 2 hours. When I finished, I knew it wouldn't break again unless she tried running a marathon in them. Friday morning, I left the shoes on her desk before she arrived. I tucked a small note inside. Should work now, but maybe keep backup shoes just in case. I signed it with my initials. I was back in my workshop later that morning fixing a door hinge when I heard quick footsteps on the stairs. Victoria appeared again, holding the shoes. They're perfect, she said, smiling in a way that made my chest feel tight. You didn't have to do all that. I wanted to do it right. She stepped farther into the room and sat down on the stool near my workbench like it was the most normal thing in the world. Security told me you were down here until almost midnight, she said. I froze. You checked security? She looked a little embarrassed. I was curious. About the repair, about you. Why? Quote, because no one has been kind to me in a long time, she said, not without wanting something in return. You were kind twice. I didn't know what to say to that. I just shrugged. It's not complicated, I said. You needed help. It feels complicated to me. The way she looked at me made the room feel smaller. Can I take you to lunch? She asked suddenly. For the shoes? Quote, for being kind, she said. For not treating me like a walking opportunity. I hesitated. I usually ate at my desk. I didn't mix work with anything else. And she was my boss. My boss's boss's boss. But something in her voice felt real. Okay, I said. Lunch. We walked 3 blocks to a small sandwich shop. It wasn't fancy. Red booths, plastic tables, menu written on a chalkboard. I went there sometimes when I wanted something quick. She looked around like she had stepped into another world. This is different, she said as we sat down. Different good or different bad? Quote, different good, she said with a small smile. Normal. We ordered sandwiches and drinks and sat across from each other. At first, it felt strange. I wasn't sure what to talk about. But once we started, the words came easy. She told me about starting at Sterling Tech right after college. Entry level, long hours. No shortcuts. How she climbed up step by step until she became CEO 9 years ago. It sounds impressive, I said. It sounds exhausting, she corrected gently. What about before all that? I asked. Before work took over? She looked down at her drink for a moment. My dad died when I was in my 20s, she said. Heart attack. After that, I buried myself in work. It was easier than dealing with anything else. I'm sorry, I said. Thank you. What about your mom? We're not close, she said simply. Work became my life. And once you're at the top, it gets lonely. She looked up at me then. What about you? She asked. There's not much to tell, I said. Grew up around here. My dad was an electrician. He taught me how to fix things. I went to technical school and got hired here right after. Do you like it? Quote, most days, I said, I like solving problems. When something's broken, I can see it. I can fix it. It makes sense. She nodded slowly. In my world, she said, nothing makes sense. It's politics and pressure and people pretending. We talked for almost an hour. About movies, about books, about places we wanted to visit someday. She laughed a few times, and every time she did, it felt like I was seeing a version of her no one else saw. Her shoulders relaxed. Her voice softened. She didn't look like a CEO. She just looked like Victoria. When we walked back to the office, I felt lighter, like something had shifted between us. At the entrance, she stopped. Ethan, she said. Yeah? Can we do this again? Lunch? She nodded. If that's okay. I studied her face. She looked hopeful. A little nervous, even. Tomorrow? I said. Same time. Her smile widened, and for a second she looked almost young. Tomorrow, she said. That night, lying in bed, I kept replaying everything. The rain. The broken heel. The way she said lonely. The way she laughed at my dumb joke about fixing doors. I told myself it was just lunch, just kindness. But deep down, I knew something else was starting. And I wasn't sure if I should be excited or terrified. The next day, I spent the whole morning pretending I wasn't thinking about lunch. I fixed a loose cabinet in the break room, replaced a cracked tile in the lobby, adjusted a door that kept sticking on the fourth floor. My hands were busy, but my mind wasn't. At 12:55, I caught myself checking the time for the third time in 5 minutes. At exactly 1 o'clock, she appeared at the top of the stairs leading down to my workshop. She didn't send her assistant. She didn't call. She came herself. "Ready?" she asked, leaning lightly against the railing. I nodded, trying to act normal. "Yeah." This time, we didn't go to the sandwich shop. She suggested a small park a few blocks away. It had benches under big trees and a food truck parked near the corner. We grabbed simple burgers and fries and sat on a bench facing a fountain. The air was warm. The rain from 2 nights ago felt like a different world. She looked relaxed again. No suit jacket today, just a simple blouse and skirt. Her hair was down, moving slightly in the breeze. "You look less stressed out here," I said before I could stop myself. She smiled. "I am less stressed out here." "Good." She glanced at me sideways. "You notice things." "I fix things," I said. "Noticing is part of it." She laughed softly. "For a while, we just talked about small stuff. A movie she watched last weekend, a concert I went to last year. It felt easy, comfortable. Then she got quiet. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. "Sure." "Why aren't you trying to use this?" Quote, "Use what?" "This," she said, gesturing between us. "Lunches with me, private conversations. Most people would see opportunity." I looked at her. "I don't want anything from you," I said simply. "That's what confuses me." "Why?" "Because I've built my whole life around knowing that everyone wants something." I leaned back on the bench. "Maybe that's the problem," I said gently. "Maybe you've been surrounded by the wrong kind of people." She didn't respond right away. "My last relationship," she said slowly, "ended because he couldn't handle my job. He said I cared more about the company than about him." "That's not fair." "Maybe it was," she said quietly. "Work is all I know." I felt something tighten in my chest. "Work shouldn't be all you know," I said. "You deserve more than that." She looked at me then, really looked at me, like she was trying to decide if I meant it. "Why do you talk to me like that?" she asked. "Like what?" "Like I'm just a person." "Because you are." Her lips parted slightly, like she was about to say something else, but she stopped. A light breeze moved through the trees. The sound of the fountain filled the silence between us. "Ethan," she said softly, "are you scared of this?" Quote, I swallowed. "A little," I admitted. "Why?" "Because you're my boss. Because this could get complicated. Because if I start liking you more than I already do, and it falls apart, I still have to see you every day." Her eyes widened just a little. "You already like me?" I hesitated, but I didn't lie. "Yeah," I said, "I do." Quote, the words hung in the air between us. She didn't look shocked. She looked relieved. "I'm scared too," she admitted. "I don't know how to do this. I know how to run a company. I know how to negotiate deals. I don't know how to just be a woman sitting on a bench with a man who fixed her shoe in the rain." I smiled. "You're doing fine." She laughed, but it was softer this time. We sat there for a while without talking. Not awkward, just quiet. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and sighed. "I have to go," she said. "Board meeting in 10 minutes." "Of course." We stood up together. For a second, neither of us moved. "Dinner," she said suddenly. "What?" "Not lunch. Dinner. Tonight. Not as CEO and maintenance guy, just Victoria and Ethan." My heart started beating faster. "That's a big step," I said. "I know." "Where?" "My place," she said quietly. "It's easier. No eyes, no whispers." I thought about it. About the building. About what people would say if they knew. And then I thought about her standing alone in the rain. "Okay," I said. Her smile this time was different. Brighter. More certain. "I'll text you the address," she said, even though I already knew where she lived. As she walked away toward the office, I stood there in the park, trying to slow my breathing. Dinner at her place. This wasn't just kindness anymore. This was something else. That evening, I stood outside her building again, but this time it wasn't raining. The doorman recognized me from the other night and gave me a curious look as he let me inside. The elevator ride up felt longer than it probably was. When the doors opened, she was already standing there. She wasn't wearing work clothes, she was barefoot. Jeans. A soft sweater. Her hair down around her shoulders. She looked nervous. "Hi," she said. "Hi." For a second, we just stood there looking at each other. Then she stepped aside to let me in. Her apartment was beautiful. Big windows, soft lighting, clean lines. But it didn't feel cold. It felt quiet. "I don't cook much," she admitted, "so I ordered takeout. That works for me." Quote. We sat at her kitchen island with plates of pasta and talked again. This time there were no time limits, no meetings waiting. At one point she reached for her glass at the same time I did, and our hands brushed. It was a small touch, but it felt like electricity. She didn't pull away right away. Neither did I. The room felt warmer. "Ethan," she whispered. I looked at her, and in that moment, I knew that whatever started in the rain had turned into something neither of us could ignore anymore. When she said my name like that, soft and almost unsure, I felt something shift inside me. We were still standing close, our hands barely touching. I could see the question in her eyes. Not about work, not about shoes, about us. "Victoria," I said quietly. She took a small breath. "I haven't done this in a long time. Not like this." "Like what?" "Letting someone close without knowing what they want from me." I held her hand fully then. Not tight. Just enough so she knew I wasn't going anywhere. "I don't want anything from you," I said. "Not your money. Not your position. Not your connections." "What do you want?" she asked again, but this time it wasn't sharp, it was vulnerable. "I want to see you smile like you did in that sandwich shop," I said. "I want you to stop looking so tired all the time. I want to sit across from you and talk about normal things. I just want you." Her eyes filled with something I couldn't name right away. Relief, maybe, or hope. "You make it sound so simple," she whispered. "It is simple," I said. "It's just two people." For a second she looked like she might cry, but instead she stepped closer. Her hand moved from mine to my chest, resting there like she needed to feel that I was real. "I'm scared," she admitted. "If this goes wrong, it won't just be a breakup. It'll be a scandal. It'll be gossip. It'll be headlines." "I know. And you could lose your job." "I know that too." She searched my face. "Doesn't that matter to you?" "It does," I said honestly. "But what matters more is how I feel when I'm with you." Her fingers tightened slightly against my shirt. "And how do you feel?" Quote, "Like I'm not invisible," I said. "Like what I do matters. Like I matter." Her expression changed. She looked almost hurt. "You were never invisible," she said. "Maybe not to you, but most days I fix things in the background. No one notices unless something breaks again." "I noticed," she said softly. "From the first second you ran toward me in that rain." We stood there in the quiet of her apartment, the city lights glowing through the windows behind her. "I don't want to hide," she said suddenly. "If we do this, I don't want it to be some secret that makes us both nervous all the time." "That's your world," I reminded her. "Not mine." She shook her head. "It would be our world." The way she said "our" made my heart beat harder. "I can talk to legal," she continued. "There are policies. We can disclose it. Make sure everything is clear. If anyone has to transfer departments, we'll figure it out." "You'd do that?" I asked. She gave me a small smile. "You fixed my shoe in a storm without asking for anything. You stayed up until midnight to make it stronger. You treated me like I was just a person. I can fight a little corporate policy for you." I laughed softly. "That sounds dangerous." "I run the company," she said with a playful look. "I can handle dangerous." That was the first time I saw confidence and warmth mixed together in her like that. Not intimidating, just powerful and real. She stepped even closer, close enough that I could feel her breath. "If we do this," she said quietly, "I want it to be real. Not because I'm lonely, not because you feel sorry for me, but because we choose it." "I'm choosing it," I said. She didn't hesitate this time. She leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't dramatic. It was slow and careful, like we were both making sure this was real. When she pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine. "That rainy night," she whispered. I felt ridiculous standing there with a broken heel. I thought it was just another reminder that I have to handle everything alone. "You don't," I said. "No," she agreed. "I don't." We spent the rest of the evening talking on her couch. Not about work, not about policies, about what this could look like, about taking it slow, about being honest. The next Monday she called me into her office. Not for shoes, not for lunch, for a meeting with HR. We sat side by side and explained that we had started seeing each other, that we wanted everything transparent, professional, clear. There were surprised looks, questions, policies discussed. But in the end, it was simple. I would transfer to facilities management at another Sterling building across town. Same pay, same job, just a different location. When we walked out of that office together, the whispers had already started. But for the first time, I didn't care. That night, we didn't meet in secret. We walked out of the building together, in the open. She reached for my hand in the lobby, in front of everyone. I looked at her. "Are you sure?" I asked quietly. She squeezed my hand. "I'm tired of being lonely," she said. "And I'm tired of pretending I don't deserve something real." I thought about that rainy night, about the way she stood alone in the parking lot, water pouring down around her, one broken heel, one small choice to walk toward her instead of away. That rainy day moment set off a chain reaction, not just for her, for me too. And as we stepped outside together, not hiding, not afraid, I realized something simple. Sometimes fixing one small broken thing can lead to fixing something much bigger, like a lonely heart. And maybe, without even knowing it, we had just started building something neither of us ever expected to find.